Golf Central on YouTube, brought to you by TaylorMade.
Lisa, it's mid-June. It's not mid-April in the Low Country. What are players saying about how different this golf course might play?
Well, Gary, first of all, you always throw me the curveball, so I appreciate the shout out. Good to see you. Look, there are a lot of similarities to last week and big changes for this event. Obviously, the safety protocol is still in place, no fans. And you mentioned this golf course. Now, anybody who's played a lot of golf in the South, they understand how Bermuda works. So the overseed happens in the fall, the overseed rye, and that's exactly what happens here at Harbor Town. And it makes it plush, it makes it green. It makes the greens a little bit different than what we usually see in the summer when they start aerating it. Now they're in the aeration process. That overseed is gone. And because of that, this golf course is going to play extremely different, not just on the greens, but think about the Bermuda around the greens and in the rough. And the players say that that's something that they've definitely had to adjust to this week.
Our golf course is going to play drastically different. The chipping around the greens is obviously more difficult with grainy Bermuda compared to overseeded rye. So the greens are all going to break a little differently. You got to really pay attention to grain even when you're hitting pitch shots. Into the greens obviously going to slow up quicker. So I think the grain's going to be more dominant on putting and chipping, and something we're all going to be watching throughout the week.
We have the same overseed at Quail Hollow as here, and I think Bermuda at its finest, it has no overseed. And so Quail Hollow right now, we don't have overseed because it's warmer, just like here. And so I think the ball's going to roll even better. April, they roll great, but a little bit of overseed mixed with the Bermuda, I think there's some inconsistencies. So I'm looking forward to some smooth surfaces.
Even though I grew up playing Bermuda grass, it's something that is definitely tough to get used to. But it's I feel like the golf course is going to play difficult. It's all about driving here. You got to place the ball, and you got to place it in the correct side of the fairways too, so you can have some good angles at these flags. But with really small greens, if you're hitting it well, you can still shoot some really good scores.
Reads on the greens are going to be completely different for somebody with a little experience. It's not going to be the same, but for me, for the guys that live in the area, from Charleston to TPC, it's what we're used to this time of year, grainy Bermuda, and that's an advantage. Andy Bean always played well on grainy Bermuda because that's what he grew up on. So I still kind of have the same home field advantage, or the guys, Zach Johnson and Jonathan Bird, those kind of guys, we're used to this, but it is different for the Heritage.
And if anybody knows what it takes to win on this golf course, it is Davis Love III, a five-time champion of this event. I really like what Dustin Johnson said, too, and it's something that will be talked about a lot this week, Gary. Some of the smallest greens on the entire PGA Tour. In fact, if you look at some of the stats from last season alone, it's pretty staggering. The 6 most difficult greens to hit at 58%. The guys were talking about the grass and the grainy Bermuda around the greens. So not only hitting the greens is important, but scrambling numbers, another thing to really pay close attention to this week. We'll talk more about the golf course and exactly what kind of player and winning statistics really matter coming up a little bit later on the show.
Lisa, thank you. You're right. We'll be back to you in a little bit. Let's talk about this golf course and the conditions, brought to you by the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. The course conditions at Harbor Town Golf Links. Fairways, Bermuda grass, the rough also Bermuda. You can see the height cut. Bermuda grass on the green, stimping at about 11.5. The superintendent, Jonathan Wright. And this is a very, very special golf course. Pete Dye, Jack Nicklaus designing in the late 60s. Trip Eisenhower joins me now. Look, Bermuda, you know it well.
Oh, yeah.
It can be feisty and unpleasant. But let's talk about the golf course itself, because last week you emphasized how Ben Hogan said, look, a straight ball is not going to serve you well around Colonial Country Club. This week, point to point is very important, isn't it?
It is, but also maneuverability of the golf ball. I mean, this golf course dictates it, not quite to the extent that Colonial does, but in a different way. And what I love about this Pete Dye and Jack Nicklaus, Jim, is the narrowness of the fairways made even more narrow by the overhanging oak trees that is part of making these fairways seem claustrophobic at times. And you can be in the fairway like the 11th hole here, down that right-hand side, and still be in the fairway and have to considerably cut cut your ball to that tiny green over there, and there's a tree up by that green as well. So a right pin, you're going to have to really be working that ball in to get to that hole. That's a real staple of this golf course, and there's a beautiful example of it. And then we go forward 1 hole to 12. Now this forces your hand. This is a bend to the right quite a bit, and you have to position your ball far enough past these trees on the right, or you will be blocked out. And this is a very tiny green. A lot of players too, they go too far through that fairway, and then they have to hook something low around and try to get it running on this green. Very difficult to get at that left hole location, in particular if you're in the left-hand side of that fairway. So you've really got to pay attention to where the holes are located and then where you want your tee ball to be. But your point is exactly right. This is a little bit more point to point, but again, the maneuverability of your golf ball, even when you're in the fairway, you're going to need at times to get to some of these greens.
All right, cozy environment. They're probably over budget on white steaks, but they have to be, because this is a community. There are a lot of homes.
There are.
Give me a hole, and again, no fans, so an errant tee shot might find itself veering toward an out-of-bounds area. Give me a hole that it's going to encroach upon.
There's a couple of them. There's a couple of them that I think of. Now, the first hole, it's not the hardest tee shot. It's not a long hole. You don't need to hit driver. You certainly can. But, I mean, I've seen guys step up here, and, I mean, that right side is not a good spot to be, so you want to kind of be towards the left, and you can hit it out of bounds over there. I've seen guys do it. It'll run through that low area, and, yeah, that's not a good way to start your round, is reaching for that ball number 2 right off the bat. So, again, this one is not as claustrophobic as some, but, again, it speaks to what Harbor Town is. Then we go forward to par 5, the 5th hole. And this is a wonderful par 5. I love this. And that is the easiest golf course, a hole on the golf course year in and year out, because everybody can get there, and two, provided that you hit it in the fairway. You need to work the ball right to left, in particular the longer hitters. And if they don't, it will go out of bounds right. Also, there's out of bounds to the right of this green as well. So you're coming in with a long iron, you're trying to cut it, you overcut it, it can run out of bounds there. So it is a claustrophobic environment, but it is a beautifully designed golf course. The smallness of the greens, the start to finish, just the variety of the holes, it is a lot of fun to play. It was always one of my favorites.
Steve Pate many years ago hit a tee shot out of bounds on the first. The reason I know that is my mom was in the backyard of the home in which he drove his opening tee shot with some other women. He gave very colorful commentary.
I'm sure from Steve. I'm sure Steve gave a nice commentary that we will not mention on air.
No, we will not.
There will be other four-letter words than golf involved, I'm sure, with Steve Pate. But, you know, Gary, one other aspect of this golf course that I want to focus on are the par 3.
Right.
This is a beautiful set of par 3s. I mean, the 4th hole is 200 yards, and then the 7th hole is not a very long hole at all, and then the 14th hole. You step up on 14, and I can tell you, Justin Thomas tweeted earlier today, there's a green up there somewhere, because you do not, I mean, it is such a tiny target, and you cannot, you cannot bail long and left. It's a very difficult up and down. You'll see a lot of balls in the water at 14, and there is a lot of double bogeys made on this par 3, and a lot of guys' chances to win this tournament have been undone starting here at the 14th, because you march back towards the clubhouse at that point, and I'm just telling you, that slaps you right in the face. You better get a lot of your birdies out of the way before you step on that hole.
You're right, and it's also very hard to shape shots. The trees around that back tee, it does not make you feel comfortable that you can work the ball one way or the other. Now, this is a great field. We would take a look at the official World Golf Rankings, the top 10 in the world, starting with world number 1, Rory McIlroy. John Rahm, who missed the cut last week at Colonial, back in the field this week. Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson round out the top 5. Now, world number 1, Rory McIlroy, spoke earlier today. Here are his thoughts about some of the European Tour players who have chosen to remain there, while also being critical of the world rankings being unfrozen at a time that the European Tour is not playing events.
If I were in their shoes and I was asked to come over to the States and shelter in place or quarantine for 2 weeks before these tournaments, I would have done that, because we've got, like, I mean, if you really care about your career and care about, like, moving forward, and, you know, like, you should be here, I think. You know, last week was 70 world ranking points for the winner. This week 74. And I get there's different variables and families and stuff involved, but I mean, we all have the means to rent a very nice house in a gated community in Florida, and it's not a hardship for 2 weeks to come over and quarantine. I mean, it's fine. Like my caddy Harry came over and did it. He stayed in our guest house. Like it was the 2 weeks flew by. So I honestly don't understand the guys complaining, because there is a solution to it. You can come over here and do what needs to be done. You can bring your family with you. We all have the means to do that. So look, I don't quite, it might seem a little harsh, and it might, but I don't get that mindset, especially if you care about your career and you want to advance.
Tripp, your reaction to Rory?
Well, he's probably going to get some requests to stay at his guest house. Guys, and hey, I'm going to come over. I'm going to be in your guest house while you're on the road. Look, I understand his point, and I agree with it somewhat. I do. I mean, look, if this is your career and they're offering to play golf somewhere and that's your job, you got to do it. I mean, you want to do it safe, and you want to make sure that you're protected and you're protecting your fellow professionals. But it is the opportunities there, and to stay over there and complain about it when you can do something about it, to me, that's a fair point that Rory made. So I agree with it. Now, he doesn't have family, and I can tell you traveling with a family is very difficult week to week on the PGA Tour. But now they have the charter flights going from event to event. So once you get over here and you get to the tour site, you'll be able to take care of, the travel is not near as burdensome as, having to do all the stuff that you normally have to do if you fly commercially. So, and a lot of these guys, keep in mind, they fly private anyway. So, that's another wrinkle that they don't have to worry about, going into airports, et cetera. So I agree with Rory. I think that if you want war ranking points, and 74 points, I mean, my goodness, I can tell you Harbor Town has not had that many points in a long, long time, if ever. Right. So I definitely think that it's an opportunity. It's your job. Play golf.